Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Gelina with the UNC Highway Safety Research Center. I want to thank you for joining today's CSCRS Research to Practice Bytes webinar about the development of an online Vision Zero resource library. Today, we're joined by a team of students from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, Lacie, Emmerich, Alessandro, Figueroa, Deborah, Shoola, who are each pursuing master's degrees in public health, and Jordan April, who's pursuing master's degrees in public health and city and regional planning. We're excited to have them here to share their work. You'll hear from them momentarily. If you're not familiar with the Collaborative Sciences Center for Road Safety, or CSCRS, our mission is to accelerate progress in reducing transportation-related injuries and fatalities by utilizing a systems approach, bringing perspectives from planning, engineering, public health, data science, robotics, and others to the road safety field. We are one of two national centers with a designated research focus on transportation safety and the only national center focused on the safe system approach. We bring together faculty, staff, and students from different UNC departments, as well as those at our partner institutions that you see here on the screen. I just want to do a bit of housekeeping before we get started. As participants, you're all muted for the webinar, but you do have the ability to submit your questions in the Q&A box. We hope you do that early and often, and we'll have a healthy period of discussion at the end of the webinar. The session is being recorded, and CSCRS will make the slides and the recording available later. And one helpful Zoom tip for you, choose the speaker view option at the top of your Zoom screen to optimize the screen and the video for the current presenter. So with that, I'd like to welcome our panel and ask you all to go ahead and pull up your slides. We're ready to get started whenever you are.
It says that screen sharing is disabled.
Let's fix that. Sorry, just one moment. There we go. Perfect. Looks great.
All right, so now is when we'll get started. So yes, good afternoon and welcome to an installment of the CSCRS Research to Practice Bytes webinar series. Dan did a wonderful job of introducing all of us. And so as part of our capstone project for the Master of Public Health degree at UNC, we worked with the UNC Highway Safety Research Center and members of the Vision Zero community to produce an online Vision Zero resource library. So before we jump into the content of our work, we did want to provide that brief overview of the issue we're addressing. So as many of you already know, Vision Zero is a paradigm shift from the traditional ease approach. So one identified gap for moving forward is providing guidance about how those different sectors represented by the different E's can work together in new ways to advance Vision Zero and produce stronger results. This shift is definitely necessary because over 40,000 people are killed on our roadways every year, including over 1,700 in North Carolina. So Vision Zero efforts in the state are primarily led by municipal staff and planning departments, but there is increasing representation from public health, nonprofits, emergency services, healthcare, and other stakeholders.
Public health plays a critical role in Vision Zero efforts, given the unique expertise of public health professionals to provide systems-level thinking to health problems, such as road injuries and fatalities. In particular, public health professionals can provide a social determinants of health framework using surveillance data to address traffic-related injuries. The MPH capstone at the Gilling School of Global Public Health at UNC is a year-long service learning course that gives health behavior and health equity students an opportunity to address real-world public health problems using MPH knowledge and skills to projects with local organizations. The UNC Highway Safety Research Center, or HSRC, is a leader in the Vision Zero space. In addition to conducting research, HSRC supports North Carolina-based coalitions with technical support and assistance, including strategic planning and leadership training on Vision Zero issues and efforts. Working with HSRC, we were tasked with creating a digital Vision Zero resource library for interdisciplinary stakeholders to engage with as part of an overall Vision Zero strategy within a design thinking and human-centered design framework. Overall, our project represents a significant contribution to the field of traffic safety, providing a valuable resource for stakeholders to work towards the Vision Zero goal of eliminating traffic deaths and injuries. One of the key components of our design thinking process is the empathize phase, which involves engaging with a range of Vision Zero stakeholders to identify key needs and gaps in the current landscape of traffic safety resources. We completed 7 key informant interviews with Vision Zero leaders from across the US. Through a series of interviews with stakeholders, including public health, transportation, regional planning, emergency services, and nonprofit and advocacy groups, we were able to gather critical insights into the challenges and opportunities of promoting Vision Zero. Some of the key themes that emerged from these interviews included the need for more accessible and comprehensive tools and resources, the importance of engaging with Vision Zero and addressing inequities in communities, and the role of multidisciplinary collaboration in groups that are missing from the conversation. These insights guided the development of a series of briefs describing our 6 stakeholders' role in Vision Zero, in addition to guiding the curation and development process of a user-friendly, accessible online resource library that would allow stakeholders to find the information they need quickly and efficiently.
So our second deliverable, which you currently only see as a blank slide, did involve the creation of 6 stakeholder reports, one for each of our identified stakeholder groups that were mentioned on the previous slide. The interviews with professionals served as a key launching point for these reports. These reports aim to be beneficial to individuals working within these sectors, as well as those unfamiliar with the work of a given stakeholder group. Though it is important to note that the draft, as you will begin to see on your screen, is an unpublished draft, the final iteration may end up looking a little different, but each report is still to contain the following information. So first, we have an introduction to the stakeholder reports and their purpose and identifying the specific sector that will be discussed. Second, there is an introduction to Vision Zero. While many practitioners may already be well aware of Vision Zero and what it entails, we aim to make this report accessible to those within the sector who are still new to Vision Zero. Then third, we have an introduction to the sector itself. This section is meant to provide grounding for those who may be unfamiliar with the work of this sector and also can address common misconceptions about the breadth of their work, such as an assumption that public health, as you see on the screen, and that public health departments mainly address communicable disease, vaccinations, and so on. And then fourth, there are 3 case studies which help to emphasize how this sector has contributed to Vision Zero resources in a city, region, or state. These case studies are specific to the sector, but also intend to highlight how this sector has worked with other stakeholder groups to achieve Vision Zero initiatives. They can range from a city's working group on Vision Zero to a region's Vision Zero plan to a change in zoning and policymaking. Fifth, we have illustrative quotes that address this sector's real or potential role in Vision Zero. These quotes were taken directly from the interviews that we completed with Vision Zero leaders and practitioners and can really help to highlight the value of a sector and the potential for multidisciplinary collaboration. And then sixth, we have a long list of listed examples of how this sector can advance Vision Zero in their context, where we address how each sector can advance Vision Zero through aspects such as leadership, resources, and skills and knowledge. We expanded on that stakeholder group's potential to engage in ways specific to their field. For instance, we highlight here how public health can advance Vision Zero through research, or how city government and elected officials in another report can support Vision Zero through budget commitments and policy changes. Then the final element of each stakeholder report is a list of resources that can guide that sector's involvement in Vision Zero and help those new to the initiative to learn more. These resources range from introductory to more advanced research, some of which were identified by those we interviewed as being a key resource in guiding their work. Once these stakeholder reports are published, they shall be included in the resource library, which Alessandro will talk more about now.
Our third deliverable, the capstone team committed to developing a resource library within Dataverse, an open source data repository platform for archiving, sharing, accessing, and exploring information open to all researchers and professionals. The decision was informed by meetings with different experts at the Odum Institute, the UNC Library System, and user interface specialists. It was determined that Dataverse's robust hosting strategies maximize the lifespan of our Dataverse library. Key benefits of Dataverse include the lifetime storage of resources, which is not impacted even if the original resource links are broken, if a host institution stops supporting Dataverse, or our resource library will automatically, in the event that an institution stops supporting our resource library will be automatically hosted by another Dataverse partnered institution. Lastly, Dataverse requires little technical web design experience and can be easily contributed to by all stakeholder groups. The primary scope of this deliverable was to develop a library utilizing design thinking principles. So the capstone team worked to align itself with the second phase of design thinking to define which search facets we believed would be most important to users. We then utilized the third phase of design thinking to ideate and collaborate with stakeholders to gauge their attitudes and perceptions on search filters and library hosting options by conducting brainstorming activities, first click tests, 15-second tests, and a must, should, could, and would include prioritization activity. Lastly, we entered phase 4 of design thinking and set out to develop a resource library and template that represents the feedback we obtained in user testing. Today, we feel that our capstone team has successfully done so, and we are happy to say that the library itself is live. While there are only a few resources live in the library at this time, our hope is that in time, it will become a go-to source for all things Vision Zero. There are 3 primary areas of focus when developing a Dataverse library. The first is going to be the Dataverse title and description that welcomes users once they enter the page. Here we introduce the purpose of the library and we define Vision Zero. We also provide basic instructions for the functionality of the library. And then we also have included a user feedback mechanism that allows for users to report their experiences to HSRC. A great plus to using Dataverse is that these links and the language within the description are easily modifiable and require minimal web design experience. On the left-hand side of the library, users will find the search filters that have been designated within our library that were informed by the design thinking sessions and sort of phases that we worked through as a team. The filters represent different Vision Zero themes, related keywords, and the stakeholder groups affiliated with any given publication. Lastly, a helpful filter that we have incorporated is the type of resource that is found within the publication. These filter options are designed for users to be able to efficiently navigate within the library, also utilizing the search function. Lastly, we have the content that is included within the library. The team has developed an upload template that ensures consistency in how each resource is uploaded, the keywords that are used, and how the content is displayed within the library. The content found within the library is designed to represent collaborative approaches to Vision Zero, and each resource can be filtered by keywords via the library's search functionality.
So our final deliverable produced as part of this project was the sustainability plan. And this plan was designed to guide and ensure the longevity and functionality of the Dataverse library. The plan details an explanation of our library curation strategy, including our keyword guide informed by our user testing activities, and you can see that here as shown on the slide. We included an explanation of our vision of the library's potential expansion and an overview of Dataverse functionality. We also included in this plan recommendations for future potential landing page options for the library, including on the HSRC website, and proposed schedule of future activities for library maintenance, additional user interface testing activities, and an appendix of the user activities that we already completed, which we did on Jamboard. It's included in the appendix with screenshots of those activities that Sandra mentioned on the previous slide. In addition to the detailed instructions on the Dataverse library's maintenance, we've also included a position description and a schedule of activities for a potential graduate research assistant to maintain this library. And this schedule of activities will support the HSRC team in seeking funding for a position that is responsible for library maintenance and upkeep. So some of our key takeaways from this project are that stakeholders generally agree that multidisciplinary collaboration is essential to execute successful Vision Zero initiatives, and that they are in search of examples, models, case studies, and other resources for successful multidisciplinary collaboration. And these findings also informed our decision to narrow the scope of our library to resources that are designed to support multidisciplinary action. We also discovered that incorporating the perspectives of diverse stakeholders is critical to develop effective solutions to road safety issues. And there is a need for sustained funding and community engagement to ensure the long-term viability of road safety programs, including Vision Zero. We found ways in which stakeholders search for resources, emphasizing a need for a repository that is accessible, free, searchable, that addresses systemic inequities, is functional, up-to-date, and intuitive with familiar keywords.
The implications for practice with regard to our capstone project include four primary points. The first point of focus for this project is collaboration and building tools for multidisciplinary coalitions with the goal of advancing Vision Zero. It is our hope that stakeholder groups will benefit from the information that we are sharing about other stakeholder groups and their shared interests across stakeholder groups. The second is that these interviews are informed our stakeholder reports are aimed to showcase their Vision Zero work. These reports are designed to act as references for those who are interested in exploring how these 6 different sectors interact with Vision Zero by using illustrative quotes and case studies. Our goal is that a larger theme of collaboration is present within these reports so that stakeholders can see how their work may be complementary with others. Next, we have created a space that centralizes Vision Zero resources that can inform multidisciplinary collaboration. Using information from both our initial stakeholder interviews and our design thinking centered user testing sessions allowed us to determine what components of a resource library that stakeholders rely on the most. Moving forward, we envision that the collection of resources within this resource library will continue to grow and reflect collaborative approaches to Vision Zero work. Lastly, by emphasizing iterative prototyping and testing, design thinking can help road safety and public health practitioners develop evidence-based interventions that are grounded in the needs and experiences of their target communities.
So before we end, we just wanted to acknowledge some of our the amazing folks at UNC who made this project possible. Elise, our preceptor, Dr. Steve Marshall, our faculty mentor, Meg Landfried and Brittany Price, who are part of the teaching team, Dr. Nalman and Seth from HSRC, who served as project consultants. We couldn't have finished this project without you. Thank you. And that's all the time that we have for today, and we'll be prepared to take any of your questions. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Thank you. Applause coming in. So good to see that. You all did a great job. Thanks for sharing all of that. I did have some questions, and I'd encourage anybody from the audience to go ahead and submit some if you have them. We'll go ahead and work from this list and handle as many as we can have time for. I wanted to start with a term that you talked about a bit toward the end there, the value of design thinking. And I just wanted to see if you could come back and explain that term in a little more detail and maybe talk about how it can be used. It's not one that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I can start to answer this question. So design thinking is kind of a framework to approaching problem solving and developing new ideas that kind of focuses on the people affected by said issue. It's definitely a kind of emerging framework that's being used more in public health spaces, particularly that it had its roots kind of like in the technology and engineering space. And it worked really well for this project because we got to talk to a lot of people across North Carolina and the country doing like really cool work on Vision Zero and advancing road safety and their issues, and hearing the problem for their perspective informed a lot of our design and development and how we kind of approached the work that we were doing. And I think we learned a lot about how we could even extrapolate a lot of what we learned to like other projects, and it's just been really cool to work on it. And I hope that we can kind of expand this to other issues within the traffic safety field. Lacie, feel free to like add on.
Yeah, I would just love to add that Deborah and I have been fortunate enough to take a course in design thinking at UNC during our master's in public health training. It's called Design Thinking for the Public Good, and that's instructed by Dr. Elizabeth Chen and Dr. Christina Leos, and that was an amazing opportunity for us to learn about these principles, how they can be principles and methodologies can be used in public health and other sectors, and it serves as a source of methodologies that are new and emerging as opposed to maybe just traditional interviewing or just traditional qualitative research. It allows you to facilitate interesting activities that could use visuals, or as we mentioned, we use Jamboard for some of ours. So it's been a great experience to be able to apply that from the coursework we learned at UNC.
Thanks, Deborah and Lacie, for that. Jordan, I think you're the right person to ask about the some questions about the stakeholder reports. You shared the public health stakeholder report, I think, as an example, and I was curious if you could talk about other types of stakeholders or groups of stakeholders that have reports that you all prepared or put together, and maybe if there were any insights from the interviews that were surprising about opportunities for maybe new partner roles, others who might see themselves in that Vision Zero space in terms of collaborating and contributing to some of those efforts.
Absolutely. So the 6 specific stakeholder reports that we developed and ultimately will be published are the public health, transportation, city government and elected officials, emergency services, nonprofit and advocacy groups, and regional planning organizations. So with those, I mean, my first takeaway, I think, would be relating to the city government and elected officials report. At first, we were just focusing purely on an elected official in our area who had been very prominent in advancing Vision Zero in a local city. And when we talked with him, it was realizing a lot of how much goes on behind the scenes and how much they rely on certain experts that are more permanently established in that city government. And so as a result of our connection with him, we ended up interviewing an assistant city manager who still oversees the transportation department. And so this really helped us understand further how multi-level, at least, city government is in contributing here. And then with regards to different stakeholder groups, I can definitely think about how during our interview with a public health professional, she discussed this one, I believe it was in Tennessee, I think, that had a very large road safety type working group that also included manufacturers of different roadway products like 3M. And that one was extremely surprising and landmark to me of just how far reaching their collaborative work was. And so I think, especially in that instance, definitely more work could be focused on those types of stakeholders like manufacturers who are ultimately integral in the road safety space. I don't know if anyone else has any contributions, but you are welcome to add your takeaways as well.
I have, I guess, some more questions about shifting. I might come back to the stakeholder reports in a moment, but shifting to the resource library itself seems like just a massive undertaking. Clearly, you put a lot of work into that. I wondered about your process for coming up with the fields that you were using to associate with each of the resources. I think it was the resource type, the topic area. It seems like it would be easy to just have hundreds and hundreds of various fields that you keep adding them and categorizing, but then wanting to keep it manageable in terms of the usability and making sure that people can easily find what they want. Can you talk a little bit about your process for that push and pull, managing the overall number of things you're tagging with various resources and how they can be drilled down to from the user perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So leading into the development of the resource library, we sat down as a group and we began to identify first what filters were available to us through Dataverse, right? So we can only put in so much with respect to the ability that we're given through the website. And it has quite a bit of different fields of discipline. So the resource or the search filters are somewhat not applicable in a lot of instances to the work that we were doing and how they could, I guess, feed into Vision Zero. And that's really where we use the Moscow testing, which is the must, should, would, and won't include sort of, I guess, prioritization tool that we ran by the different stakeholders within HSRC meetings. And we took the different search filters that we included and we had them sort them into those different categories. And that was really the best way for us to inform which search filters would be included within the library. So we ran through and identified our primary assumptions prior to that meeting as to what search filters we would see included. And then we ran through the testing, and we were able to cut down the list of different search filters that maybe users weren't necessarily searching by. So it's like within Dataverse, one of the key ones is the title of the document. A lot of people don't necessarily have the title of the resources, so they're going to want to go in and see the different stakeholder groups that are identified within that resource itself. So it was really fine-tuning that based on what users look for the most when they go to a resource library and they're looking for different types of resources, data sets, or other information found within that library. And I know that Deborah spearheaded a lot of the different design thinking modules that we ran through, especially that Moscow one. So if you have anything else to add that I didn't necessarily cover, it'd be really awesome to hear that.
Yeah, I think I would just add to like kind of the importance of talking with stakeholders who are like living and working like within this. When we sat down to do like the brainstorm of all the different terms and categories, like we kind of wanted to figure out like what are people actually using, and a lot of that like might have included like a media guide or like a funding guide or a policy brief or all these different things. And after talking with people, it was like, well, they're actually looking for something a little bit like more actionable, something that kind of focuses on like the role like different stakeholders and groups can play in Vision Zero, something that's like really centered in equity, and provides like language and guides around kind of incorporating that into like daily work. So it was really kind of our stakeholders who kind of informed like what kind of categories we ultimately ended up with.
Excellent, thank you. I wanted to, for our next couple of questions, bring in Elise Keefe, who's here from the Injury Prevention Research Center at UNC and oversaw and helped with a lot of this work. So Elise, we had a couple of other questions I think you were going to help us weigh in on. To what degree do the resources in the library drill down to like super specific issues like very practical, crosswalk design or pavement condition and things like this that designers or engineers are really going to be grappling with in their work?
Yes. So the library right now, we did have to kind of have some sort of scope, at least to start with, which is kind of around, I think, what our expertise at CSCRS, the injury prevention at UNC and more broadly is, which is around multidisciplinary collaborations. And so right now the resources are more targeted at that than such specific kind of more technical material types of just because that's a little bit outside of our expertise. So that's maybe longer term, there could be more resources related to that. But for now, we're trying to really bring together the many resources out there that are more focused on that. Multidisciplinary collaborations and coalition building. And then I think, I don't think I can message everyone. Maybe Jennifer or Dan could link the current library, which just has a few resources in it at the moment. And these are pretty much all from CSCRS because we do need permission from authors to publish. And so I mean, kudos to these students. Can you believe how much they did in 2 semesters on top of all their coursework? It's really amazing. And yeah, I'm so grateful and proud of them. Anyway, so that's kind of the next phase, right? Is actually like putting resources into the library and finalizing those stakeholder reports, which I think was a question. And would have been great to have that done right at the end of the semester before they finished. But I think those will be coming out this summer. We just have to kind of finalize the design on those. And then they will be in this, they'll be added to this library, and you'll be able to find them at this link for VZ resources on Dataverse. And then, yeah, hopefully by next fall, we'll be able to have maybe a student kind of take over and start really compiling and filling in the library.
Great, thank you, Elise. And so we did push that link out. We'll send that link out with the follow-up emails as well. You'll have it, don't worry. It'll be there and we'll be adding to it slowly over time. We're out of time, so thank you. I want to say thank you again to all of our panelists, Lacie, Alessandro, Deborah, Jordan, for all of your work on this, and Elise for overseeing such great research. One note before you leave, we don't have the details all set yet, but we're going to share that on May 24th, we'll be hosting another session that'll focus on processes for planning street transformations during the COVID-19 pandemic response. So that'll happen next month around the same time. We'll send out information and we hope to see you there. Thanks to all of you for attending, and we'll see you again next month.